Hello friends, I thought I would give you a brief overview of how I created a moving effect for the 80s. Watch. You can see the grid on the top and the bottom. It's neonized, the ASMR I did, and each one I put a different background, and I changed the color of the moving grid. And this one's special. I'll get to that in a minute. So let's stop this for now. So we're going to click on these individually and I'm going to go over them. So a lot of these are adjustment clips. And the guy I got the info from has a YouTube clip and used all these adjustment clips. Used a couple extras because he put the text in. My text is actually it's actually an image. So I did that myself outside of the program. But your first one, I named it Grid and Color. So you can see I changed the rows, the columns, the spacing based on, I wanted squares, approximately it to look like squares there. Major line spacing gives thicker lines. Those thicker lines I put in later. So we got the zoom, we got the rotate, or the width and height, and all that stuff. So that's just making the grid. The next one up is the movement of the grid. So I went to the beginning of the segment. If this is one segment here, it is one segment here. I went to the beginning of the first one. I set the Y at a certain, I should be able to see it over here. Yeah, so 322 was what I set mine to. You'll have to experiment with yours based on how big your grid is. And if you're doing 1080p, 4K, 720p, whatever your output is going to be. So mine went 322 to -620 because that's where it stopped. So the grid itself does not loop. I could not get my grid to loop like he did. My grid did not form an infinite loop. So I put it approximately at a good speed to where at the beginning you wouldn't notice it, but there is one line right below this, and then there's no grid down here, relatively speaking. And then at the end here, well, let me see if I can just slide it back a little bit. What you see right there is the last line of the grid. There's no more grid coming in. So that's how you do it. If you can't get infinite grid, is just set it so that your grid is going to troll through. Now, one screen size grid going at this speed it's going. So very clearly there's motion. Took a minute and a half to get through. If you wanted it to go for longer, you could possibly repeat the effect, but I want you to watch the transition here. So you see, it doesn't look like there's any interruption because I put my first line on the first frame in line, and the last line on the last frame was in line. So it looks continuous, but it's a completely different one. Okay, let's go up. This one is position. So this was a rough positioning. I changed the zoom, the width and the height a little bit, or the pitch. So this is the angle. I angled it down with this one. I think, yeah, this was just the angle, never mind. So it says position, but I changed it from a flat grid to a downward grid. And this is the grid we're working with still. This is a mirror. So anything that happens down here, you can set it with a mirror. Something else to notice about these adjustment clips is they affect everything below them. So if you have, like, for example, over here, where I've got my background and my ASMR thing, I initially had this background underneath, and the grid was scrolling with the starry background, and it was just blank in the middle behind there. My ASMR here was on the top. By the way you get this background behind, I've got it selected, is you change the composite mode to add. Normally it's on normal, and you can oh, it's on top. But if you change it to add instead, it will put it behind. So this transparent grid that I set up will show up transparent and scroll. Anyway, so where were we? We were on position, and with the position, that was just knocking it down a level. Let's go over here. It's fun to look at different things. The next one up from position is crop. So before, you could see the whole grid stretched out and the end of the grid. So the crop was making the grid shorter so that it appeared to be an infinitely scrolling grid. So we're just faking the infinite scrolling at this point. So that's part of the faking of the infinite scroll, is cropping it so that you don't see it extending into the distance any further than you want it to. Then up here we have a generator for color. This generator for color is on that line. So let me show you the crop here. So I cropped a solid panel of color into a line, and then you can change the color of the line here. By the way, each one of these different grids, I picked a line color based on a general feeling for color. I didn't color pick from this background. I was just like, you know, green would be good. And then I played around with a couple greens until I found a green that I thought was contrasting enough that you could tell, like, there's green in the background, but at the same time homogeneous enough that it looks like it fits. And it was the same for each one of these. Like, there was an orange that was obvious. That orange in particular is pretty easy to match because it's very saturated orange right along the side there. And of course it goes a little darker down there. But yeah, each one of these I just picked a general. And this one, because it was so blue already, I tried to get a little bit more contrast in the blue so that you could see it from the distance, so to speak, coming toward. Anyway, where were we? We were right here. So this color generator, definitely just cropped it top and bottom, and I cropped it so it looked a little bit thicker than the other lines. We go up. Neon. So this is the halation effect, and you can change the threshold, which I didn't have to for this. Like, most of my colors are pretty saturated, so that was not an issue. You can change the strength. The secondary glow strength was also really big. Saturation, normalization. You can adjust all of this stuff to get the type that you're looking for. But most of what I remember adjusting was the secondary glow strength. And I think I might have changed the normalization maybe, or the threshold a little bit. But yeah, we continue upward. Now we've got move down. Because all of this was already, like, first we had to create the grid, then we had to make it move, then we had to tilt it in an angle. Like all of these were different steps up here. It's much, much easier, I found, to adjust up and down by following with the original guy's instructions. So I just add a transform. All of this, by the way, is done in this panel. You search for your effect over here, and then you add a adjustment clip. I would add an adjustment clip, go over to this panel, stretch it out as far as it needed to be, and then I would go back in here and find the effect, add the effect to it, and then tweak the effect while I was in this edit page rather than the whatever page this is. I honestly forget the page. So we've got our transform, which just, I shifted it down a little bit. And then when I shifted it down, I had to go back to this one, the solid color that I made into that line, and I had to adjust that down a little bit too. Not a big deal at all. We had our neon, we had our move down, and the final one was mirror. So after doing all that effort and getting it positioned on the bottom, I then hit mirror, and the mirror effect is just negative 90 degrees. That's all you had to do to put it on top if you wanted. Now you could make it even trippier by mirroring everything here. Just put another mirror node, and you could have it coming in from the sides too, but your grid is going to intersect in that case. And you'd have like one here and one here in the same colors and scheme. If you wanted to do different colors, I'm sure there's a way to do multiple different colors here, but the bottom grid effect was 7 channels. So you're going to have 14 channels if you want to do this same thing but change the color. Because again, the adjustment, any adjustment clips you put in are going to affect everyone under them. So you'd have to somehow split, maybe by exporting. And then the top is my background on each of these. And again, composite mode, add in DaVinci Resolve Studio 19. Because I tried to follow a video for 17 and the steps don't work. He used this page, the Fusion page, and I really wanted to use the Fusion page so that I could copy the effects and put them like in a save file to just re-import them again later for another project if I needed, but his method did not work that was made 2 years ago, so I had to follow one that was made a month ago. Last but not least, you're going to see here, I stretched it out a little bit so that there's only 1.5 or 1 square instead of 3 squares, because I was using this as a overlay, a moving overlay. So let me show you how to do that real quick. We'll go to the export page. Do I have it up? Yes, I do. So normally, this is your export for something that is primarily based on pictures or effects that you're generating. It's going to be QuickTime H264, encoder auto, and then your resolution and your frame rate. But if you want to export a transparency, like I put camera feed behind this, normally I just put my model in front of it, right? But I had a hand cam for the ASMR, so this one is fairly simple. It's GoPro Cineform. You change the color to RGB16, GoPro Cineform, RGB16, and you want export alpha, and you render it, and that's it. You can see I did the render on the original, and then I changed my export so that it was just the the blank, so to speak, the overlay, after I adjusted where these were, and then I did that on its own. But yeah, that's it. I hope this was informative. I was going to do a video showing myself figuring this out on the fly. I got 30 minutes in and I was like, I'm looking at something for Studio 17 and we can't do that. It doesn't work anymore. The connections aren't there. It relies on a node in the Fusion page that does not exist anymore. So, oof. Anyhow, I will catch y'all on the next one.